thirdly, on our members, yesterday something very interesting happened. An item appeared on the order paper which I did not remember clearing. And eventually when I checked with the clerk, she also did not remember clearing it. But that motion is one which I think does not qualify to be discussed here. It's a matter under investigation. I don't know how we can discuss a matter which is under investigation without affecting the investigations.
A bout of consternation swept through the August House on Tuesday last week as the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, called out a group of MPs for allegedly forging their colleague's signature to second a motion sneaked on the order paper.
But worse still, honour members, one of those who has claimed to have sponsored the motion said he did not sponsor the motion, he was not a seconder, and that the signature on the motion was forged. I have a letter here. So, honour members, if members have reached a situation where they can forge other people's signatures in order to get a motion on the floor, it's terrible.
Why could a honorable colleague forge my signature? What is he interested in?
Through sleight of hand, those behind this motion plotted to instigate a parliament-led probe of two senior managers of the Electrification Agency, which would result into their sacking. The two managers are the Deputy Executive Director, Godfrey Werike, and John Agenda, the Director for Project Development and Management. The two are currently on extended suspension by the former Electrification Board after they were faulted by an IGG investigation in January for insubordination and negligence, respectively. It was the second time that MPs were sucked into a tangled web of intrigue and a power struggle that has roiled the Electrification Agency since 2015. This power struggle has ensnared, among other actors, security agents and journalists who have all picked sides. Last October, the Parliamentary Natural Resources Committee came under spotlight after it attempted to overstep its boundary to summon the Chinese ambassador in Uganda to answer queries relating to an electrification project funded by his government through the Exim Bank. These boardroom fights have for the last 5 years in a row pitted the long-serving executive director, Godfrey Hikayo, and his deputy and likely successor, Godfrey Werike. The fallout between the two started in 2014, when Werike, then serving as the manager for project development and management, was elevated by the board to deputy executive director in charge of technical operations following a mini restructuring exercise. At that time, Hikayo's contract was expiring in October 2015. Hence, the elevation of Werike was interpreted by many as a preparation for a transition. However, Hikayo subsequently got a 4-year contract which expired last year in June. Hikayo, who has been at the helm of the Electrification Agency for the last 18 years, is currently on a 1-year contract which expires early next month after it was extended at the behest of President Museveni last year following reports of corruption against his junior managers. Earlier in May, the Minister of Energy Permanent Secretary, Robert Kasande, who doubled as the agency's board chairperson, had notified Hikayo that his contract would not be renewed over poor performance. In the notice letter, dated May 30th, Kasande noted that, I quote, "There were very disturbing trends in the decline of implementation of activities of the agency for the last 4 years. In that regard, at its sitting on May 27th, 2019, the board declined to renew a contract." The Electrification Agency is a semi-autonomous body under the Ministry of Energy, established to spearhead government's electrification program, whose access is currently dismal. However, in its latest performance report, the agency says rural electrification access currently stands at 20%, with over 1 million connections onto the national grid, up from 1% in 2001. But according to yet Beredy's Ministry of Energy, Uganda Bureau of Statistics Electrification Survey report, the overall access rate to electricity in Uganda is around 42%, and the country has one of the lowest electricity consumptions per capita in the world. The report notes that, I quote, "This corresponds to an access deficit of about 25.1 million people, or 5.6 million households. Most of the access deficit is located in rural areas where 80% of the population resides." The latest infighting at the agency is centered around Hikayo's contract renewal. Following expiry of the tenure of the last board, the Ministry of Energy, which supervises the agency, enacted a statutory instrument that changes composition of the board going forward. The instrument, which also locked out Hikayo, aged 70, from office once his current contract expires, was however challenged in court. Also in the mix is the $212 million or 794 billion shillings electrification project conceptualized in 2016 and funded by China's Exim Bank for electrifying 558 sub-county headquarters and connecting over 170,000 customers directly onto the national grid. Last December, the Exim Bank released the first tranche of the loan for, among other activities, environmental impact assessment and resettlemental action. Implementation of the project, according to people in the know, has however been bogged down by administrative fights at the agency. Early this year, President Museveni received a dossier from intelligence claiming that some senior managers at the agency had pocketed $8 million or 29 billion shillings in kickbacks off the project. The dossier named Werike and REA as the chief suspects. Highly placed sources told NTV that a furious Museveni wanted the duo and everyone else involved immediately arrested and prosecuted, but instead wrote to the Police Criminal Investigations Director, Grace Akullo, on March 10th, directing her to personally oversee the probe into the allegations. CID confirmed the probe in an earlier interview.
We're undertaking investigations in the Rural Electrification Agency, and I believe the investigations are expeditiously being done.
Tria Hikayo also confirmed being quizzed by police detectives on the same.
I know about the investigations going on. I've had interaction with police and I've made my statement.
He, however, declined to discuss the matter in detail, saying it is the subject of investigation.
I'll wait for the outcome of the investigations, and I'm ready, and I'm sure all the other officers in the agency involved will cooperate with the police.
Months into the probe, people familiar with the matter say the claim of the $8 million bribe is likely a wild goose chase, as the president fell into trap of the internecine fights at the agency, usually sparked by whistleblower reports, as a decoy. CID is now conducting a wide-ranging probe into the agency, and several managers, both current and former, are said to be interrogated. In the last 5 years, the outgoing Inspector General of Government, Irene Mulyagonja, has investigated the Electrification Agency at least thrice, and so has the Auditor General, John Mwanga, conducted back-to-back value for money audits, usually sparked by whistleblower reports. The cause of the row and its origins depends on which side you speak to. But according to people in the Ministry of Energy, Werike's problem is being in the queue for the top job. On the other hand, some sources say Turiagenda's problems started when he briefly supervised the Chinese-funded project and revised downwards the contract price by $80 million or 298 billion shillings to $212 million, but maintained the scope of work. While the president was told that the officials currently on suspension pocketed $80 million in kickbacks, a review of the project documents, including bills of quantities, show that the accused did not sign anywhere on the initiation of the contractor's invoices, as management of the project was removed from them last October and reassigned to other officers as a result of the infighting. Also, it remains unclear how the $80 million was eaten in kickbacks when the said activities for which the money was requisitioned are still in early stages. While the president was told that the money was stolen, sources in the Ministry of Energy say when the line minister saw clarification from the agency management, she was told rather it was about to be stolen. Meanwhile, these disputes have spilled over and weighed over other donor-funded projects by the African Development Bank and the World Bank. Sources in the Ministry of Finance intimated to NTV that the World Bank is increasingly concerned about the scandalous nature of the Electrification Agency, as their funded projects are moving slowly, and in light of ongoing discussions on another $400 million or 1.4 trillion shillings project to scale up electricity access for refugees and host communities and industrial parks in the country. Discussion on the $400 million World Bank project is still ongoing, but already the Electrification management is locked in a tough war with its parent Ministry of Energy over the project management in the future. With billions of shillings siphoned or wasted away every year, and endemic corruption institutionalized as a jet fuel of this society, such fights in government agencies continue to cripple service delivery, usually at the expense of the majority poor. And in this case, millions of families might take longer to see the electricity they were promised.